In the neon streets of Japan, the whispers of an ancient underworld still echo. They are tattooed men in sharp suits, bound by loyalty, feared by society. They are called the Yakuza. But their story does not begin in modern Tokyo. It begins centuries earlier, in a Japan torn between war and peace, honor and survival. This is the story of how Japan's Mafia came to be. The year is 1603. Japan has finally been unified under the Tokugawa shogunate. After centuries of bloodshed, peace has returned. But peace brings its own chaos. Thousands of samurai, once warriors of great honor, are left without masters. They are called Ronin, wanderers with no home, no future, and no way to use their swords. These Ronin were dangerous. Skilled in combat, but unemployed, many drifted into the margins of society. Some became bodyguards for merchants, while others turned to extortion, gambling, or banditry. Their fall from noble warriors to desperate rogues created a new social tension in Edo period Japan. The shogunate's law was strong but not absolute. In the cracks of this rigid system, small gangs began to appear. Men who offered protection for a price, or who ran gambling dens in the shadows. What began as scattered outcasts soon became something much larger. The earliest ancestors of the Yakuza. From this chaos, two groups rose to dominance. The first were the takiya, peddlers who controlled stalls at festivals and markets. They sold trinkets, charms, and medicines. Some real, some fake. But their real power came not from sales, but from control. They claimed territories, charged protection fees, and punished rivals. The second group were the bakuto, gamblers who ran illegal dice games. Their dens were dimly lit, filled with smoke and tension. Farmers, merchants, and even desperate samurai risked everything for a chance at fortune. The bakuto thrived on addiction and loss. When gamblers couldn't pay, debts chained them to a life of servitude. Though different, the takiya and bakuto shared one thing: organization. They built hierarchies, demanded loyalty, and fought for control of the underworld. Together, they became the roots of what would one day be known as the Yakuza. What separated these groups from ordinary criminals was their code. They created the Oyabun-Kobun system, a strict hierarchy of parent and child. The Oyabun, or boss, offered protection and guidance. The Kobun, or follower, swore absolute loyalty in return. This wasn't just business. It was family, sealed by ritual and blood. But loyalty came at a price. When a member failed, he performed yubitsume, slicing off part of his own finger as an offering of apology. Each missing finger made sword fighting harder, symbolizing dependence on the Oyabun. It was brutal, but it bound men closer than chains ever could. The Yakuza also marked themselves with art. Tattoos covering their skin in dragons, koi, and gods. These tattoos were not fashion. They were pain, endurance, and identity. Hidden under clothes in daily life, they were revealed only in trusted circles. A declaration of belonging to the underworld. By the late 1800s, Japan entered the Meiji era, racing to modernize. The Yakuza adapted. No longer just peddlers and gamblers, they infiltrated construction sites, ports, and entertainment districts. They controlled labor, demanded bribes, and ensured that nothing moved without their approval. Politicians soon discovered the usefulness of the Yakuza. They hired them to intimidate opponents, rig elections, and maintain order where the government could not. In smoky rooms, deals were struck between men in suits and men with tattoos, tying the underworld to the state. This era transformed the Yakuza into something bigger than gangs. They were becoming a hidden power, both feared and strangely respected, embodying the myth of outlaws with honor. Then came 1945. Japan lay in ruins after World War II. Once proud cities like Tokyo, Osaka, and Hiroshima were reduced to ash and rubble. Families were shattered, hunger gnawed at every stomach, and law and order collapsed in the face of desperation. Where government authority failed, another force rose from the shadows. The Yakuza thrived in this chaos, filling the void left by broken institutions. They seized black markets, smuggled American goods, and controlled the flow of food and supplies. For many, survival meant dealing with the Yakuza, whether they wanted to or not. The black markets became battlegrounds. Rival gangs, Korean syndicates, and foreign groups fought tooth and nail for control. Knives clashed in alleys, fists flew in crowded streets, and bodies were left as warnings. But the Yakuza had something their enemies did not: discipline, hierarchy, and sheer numbers. Their organization allowed them to dominate not just the black markets, but also the ports, construction sites, and entertainment districts. By the 1950s, the Yakuza were no longer shadows whispering in alleys. They were a visible empire, operating in plain sight. By the 1960s to 1980s, the Yakuza reached their peak. They weren't just tolerated. They were unavoidable. They established official headquarters with signs on the doors, handed out business cards as if they were legitimate corporations, and even engaged in public charity. After natural disasters, Yakuza trucks often arrived before government aid, handing out food and water, polishing an image of outlaws with honor. But behind the polished facade was a darker reality: extortion, drug trafficking, and bloody turf wars that left entire neighborhoods trembling. With over 180,000 members, the Yakuza were a force that infiltrated every corner of Japan's society: construction, finance, real estate, and even film. They lived in a paradox: feared as criminals, yet respected as a stabilizing power in Japan's underworld. For a time, it seemed as though nothing could touch them. But empires always fall. By the 1990s, Japan's government had had enough. The bubble economy collapsed, public anger rose, and the Yakuza's open presence became intolerable. New anti-gang laws froze their bank accounts, punished companies that did business with them, and cut off their financial networks. Suddenly, what had once been a symbol of fear and pride became a heavy burden. Being Yakuza meant being hunted, not just by the law, but by society itself. Membership plummeted. Once proud syndicates that had paraded their power now hid in the shadows. Their offices, once filled with smoke and whispered deals, stood abandoned. Some groups dissolved, others splintered into smaller, desperate gangs. A few tried to reinvent themselves as legitimate businessmen, but the stigma remained. Their tattoos, once symbols of pride, became dangerous marks that shut doors in society. Still, the Yakuza did not disappear. They adapted, burrowing deeper underground, hiding behind fronts, and moving into new forms of crime like cyber fraud and international trafficking. The old rituals survived. The Oyabun Kobun bonds, the silent rules of loyalty, the ink tattoos that told stories of pain and endurance. Even as the law pressed harder, the Yakuza refused to let their centuries-old legacy vanish. Today, the Yakuza still exist, but as shadows of their former selves. Their numbers have dwindled, their influence diminished. They are no longer the untouchable empire they once were, yet their legend endures. Whispers of their presence echo in Tokyo's nightlife, in Osaka's alleys, in the scars of those who still bear their tattoos. They may no longer rule the streets, but their ghost remains etched into Japan's history.